I'll tell you what started me with this. I went along to a meeting at the council in 2019 because they held a series of meetings about the climate emergency, and they invited the citizens along and the businesses and the people in the community to come along and give evidence about what they thought should be done about the climate emergency. And from that, the council published a lot of recommendations, and they brought a lot of those recommendations into their sustainability plan. And I would urge everyone to go off and look at the council website and see what they're doing with their plan and what progress they're making. One of the things that they have as a recommendation is to hold a citizens' assembly and to actually be bringing citizens together to actually discuss how we together tackle these issues. So they haven't managed that yet. Of course, funding is difficult, but that is an idea which I think, we should really all try and persuade the council to find some funding for. But my story today is going to be about what I'm doing about active travel. So I've spent my life using the car. The car I've driven everywhere. And I suddenly thought, when I heard about the climate emergency and the council's target of becoming a carbon zero city by 2030, what can I do? What can I do personally? So my car was coming up for the end of its lease period. It had sat during lockdown outside my drive for, such a long time without me using it. And I realised I don't need to use it. I don't need to replace it. So what I decided to do was not have a car, and I moved closer to the city centre because I was living in a rural village outside, and I bought myself an electric bike. And now I'm relying on that as my main form of transport. But it's meant I've had to really change my lifestyle. I can't just hop in there and be there in a few minutes. I have to think about how long it's going to take, what food I take, how much I can carry if I'm going shopping. So, what I'm wearing, what is what I'm wearing? Am I going to be hot when I get there? So there's lots of things to consider, as well as what route is safe, especially if I'm travelling at night. So one of the main things that I've discovered is that Melton Keynes is built for the car. Even though we've got a lovely redway system, it's built for the car. So for example, there's a lovely new estate that I cycle through regularly to get to work, and every few yards I have to stop because there's a break between the houses and they've got a car park, and the cars get priority to come through. So the stop signs are on the redway. What if we put the stop signs for the cars and they had to stop and look if there's a cyclist coming? So these are all the sorts of things that I think as a city, we citizens, we get this knowledge, we become experts in how to get around our town with active travel, walking, cycling, using scooters. We become the experts, and what we should be doing is communicating with our council about sharing our expertise, what we know, how we could improve the whole system so that we can have more people travelling actively, leaving their cars behind, which would, help the council meet its target of reducing the carbon emissions. So that's my story, and I'd love to hear your transport stories, and I'd love you all to come and work with us in the community, the Climate Action Network, and bring your stories about that and other things that you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you. Alright.
Okay.
All right.
Good afternoon all. My name is Marvin Sigalo, and my story will be quite different from hers, and maybe we'll disagree a bit on certain areas as well, because like you said, Melton Keynes is built for the car. We can't just change that overnight. but we still have to look at how we're going to reduce the carbon emission in the community. And so then we must be inclusive. So those who are able to go with a bike should be considered. Those who would go with the cars should be considered as well. But now we can look at low carbon transport as an option. So we've got electric cars now. I would say within their own rights, the national grid is doing something about decarbonizing electricity. So that simply means that if we electrify a lot of things, then we are reducing the carbon naturally. And so if we go for the electric bikes, the normal bikes, and the electric vehicles and hybrid vehicles, will be doing a lot of work in the community in terms of reducing carbon. This can be expensive, so this is where we'll talk to the council and see how can they help in financing some of these things, even if it's at an interest rate, so that people don't bear the capital cost of getting these things in the community. And this is where I come from. My interest has been electricity. I was first an electrical engineer, then I did a PhD in renewable energy, and currently my job takes me straight into electric vehicle installation across the community. I work across London and other counties. So I would say that it would not be that because the cars are fast, so we can't just put the stop signs on the motorways or on the car routes and then open that to the people using the bike. So we can strike a balance between that and see how that works depending on the area. If it's a very, very residential area, the stop sign can be on the cars while the bikes are prioritized. If it's a very commercial area where it's quite busy, then we can flip it the other way around, such that everybody is considered depending on what the environment is like.
All right, thank you.
Hi, thanks. I'm up Francis from Melton Keynes Green Party. For those perhaps not familiar, the Green Party is a political party, much like Tories or Labour or whatever, except that we're very concerned about the environment as well as all the other political issues. I've lived in Milton Keynes for more than 40 years, and I've been campaigning on environmental and climate change issues throughout that whole 40-year time. I'm on a parish council in New Bradwell, but I'm not a member of Milton Keynes Council. I've tried to get elected to it several times, but not been successful. But I do go and attend a lot of their meetings and speak from the public gallery, take part in working group sessions and such like. So what I was really sort of going to talk a little bit about is the process of how the council has developed its sustainability strategy and its action plan, because I have been a bit involved in that. In 2019, the council declared a climate emergency and said they needed to do something about the climate. This was after many years of lobbying for people like myself, saying that the council needed to address the issue of the environment and climate change. And it was partly through pressure from groups like Extinction Rebellion, who were very active at that time, that the council said, yeah, okay, we'll declare a climate emergency and we'll start to develop some policies to address this. They said that they would seek to be carbon neutral by 2030. That's, there was an 11-year period then. We are now 4 years into that, and I think they're still some way off that target. But they then set up something which Jane referred to, the Climate Change Task and Finish Group. This was a group of 6 councillors, 2 from Labour, 2 from Liberal Democrats and 2 from Conservatives, to take evidence from community groups. I was co-opted onto that, so I wasn't a councillor, but as the Green Party representative, if you like, in Milton Keynes. I was co-opted onto that because they needed, I think, my expertise basically in knowing something about, kind of what questions to ask. So that Task and Finish group took evidence. I think it was 4 or 5 sessions, produced a report. Not everything that community groups proposed was in the report. There was a filtering process. I would like to have seen a lot more things in there. The more radical stuff was what tended to get filtered out. However, in early 2020, a report from that Task and Finish group went to the council. That was a few weeks before COVID kicked in, which did rather slow things down after that. But eventually the council came up with what they call a sustainability action plan. And that's kind of really what counts, because that's what they said they'll do. And that had some of the ideas that the council had come up with themselves, but a lot of the ideas that had come out of the Task and Finish group. And some of them had timescales associated with them, like they said, short term, which was going to be 2020 to 2022. So those should all have been accomplished by now. They haven't. And a medium term, which I think was 2023 to 2027, and a longer term one. And some of the actions didn't even get one of those timescales. They were just, they used the word recommendation. In other words, we'll still list this, but we're not actually going to do anything about it. And of course, those were the more radical ones, which were either long timescales or no timescales. And this is a problem with Milton Keynes Council. As I say, I've been involved with them for about 40 years now. They're really good at writing strategies, and they're really bad at implementing strategies. There was one I was involved in 1999, so that's 24 years ago, called the Local Transport Plan. Had 4 iterations of it since then, because it gets refreshed every 5 years. Many of the things that they promised in 1999 still haven't been delivered 24 years on. So hence I'm a bit sceptical. They come up with these plans, but I know that for either political reasons or lack of capability, that they're not going to deliver on them all. So they've got this action plan, and some of the things on it are within their control, because they're things that the council. Sorry, okay.
Yeah, Mr. Adam, I know you have a lot to talk about.
Yeah. Okay, I'll come to a conclusion. Just let me come to a conclusion, and then we'll go on to the rest of the stuff. Yeah. So I think it's every year, they look at this action plan and see what they've managed to achieve. And I have to go along and say, well, you haven't done that. And there's a lot of the targets that are incredibly difficult to measure anyway. So that's where we are now, that we have this action plan, but it's not really being implemented. And I will come on to absence in question.
Thank you. Well, Mr. Allen, I can actually see that you are representing green. Yeah, I can see, the green top. Yeah. So, I don't know, are you still contesting?
Yeah, I stand for the council elections each year, and I've stood to be a member of parliament. I think it's 10 times now. So, yeah.
Are you going for the 11th time this time around?
Possibly. We haven't yet decided, because they've just redrawn all the boundaries, so we're about to select candidates again.
And what do you think you will do, differently if you get into the office, as in line with the achieving low emission, and green energy and things like that?
Certainly if I became an MP, that would be great, because Parliament sets the laws, and that's what impacts, a lot of these things. Parliament needs to